Hi guys and welcome, my name is James, and in this video I'll be showing you how to make this stylized 2-slot card holder out of vegetable tanned leather. You can download the pattern from my Etsy store with the link down in the description below, and hopefully you'll have a great time making some of these card holders as well. In the meantime guys, thanks a ton for joining me today. Hopefully you'll learn something and hopefully you'll enjoy this video. So let's make this bad boy. The first thing you want to do is print out your PDF pattern on A4 sheets of paper. Make sure that your printer settings are set at 100% scale of the original document, as printers like to resize in very different ways and often you'll end up with something slightly smaller. So yeah, go ahead and check your printer settings before anything and go ahead and print out at 100% scale. You'll notice that there is a lining which is marked as optional here, and that is completely up to you if you want to use it or not. In my case I will be using it as I find it adds quite a lot to the piece, but again, that's totally up to you to decide whether or not you want to use it in your piece. Go ahead and cut out the pattern following the cut marks here. This is very self-explanatory, and you should end up with 2 or 3 different pieces depending on what you want. In my case, I'll be using some vegetable tanned leather. It's a neutral leather, which I like to use from Déco Cuir, which I really appreciate from France here. And the first thing I always do is make sure that the leather is nice and nourished and supple. We're using a small amount of neatset oil. As you can see, I'm using some Beveling oil dye or pro dye, and this is in my case diluted 50-50 with some alcohol. So this is 100% pure ethanol alcohol, and this will enable me to have something that's not as strong as the original and will give me a better control over my dye. Even so, my dye wasn't amazing, but it's more than sufficient right now, and I found that for the protective layer, or the wax layer, or whatever you want to use on this point, I've really been enjoying using Saphir Renovateur. I find that this does 2 things. First of all, it applies a nice amount of oils and waxes back to the leather. And secondly, it gives it a really nice sheen. It does have, despite the oil content, it does have some wax in there, which helps protect, seal the leather, and give it that nice shine that you're seeing there. I am marking my different templates on the back of the leather piece here using a simple pen. Up to you to decide how you guys want to do it, but in my case I find this works very, very well. Just make sure that you are holding the piece down very firmly. You may even want to stick your paper to some cardstock in order to help you in this process, because the top part of that front panel PDF template wants to wander around and is not the easiest. Once your pattern is cut out from the leather, go ahead and use a small edge beveler. In my case, it's a number 00 from Barry King Tools edge beveler, and it gives me a very, very nice bevel. You'll want to bevel the inside of that pocket, of that front pocket there, as well as the bottom here, because these are 2 pieces you won't be able to have access to later on in the build, or at least not very easily. So go ahead and bevel those and prepare them for the burnish, which means in my case dyeing it with, again, the Beveling oil dye in brown, or golden brown in this case, and go ahead and make sure that all those edges which won't be accessible are ready for the toconol, which is my burnishing agent. Toconol I found is an amazing burnishing agent, but you don't need to use this. This is what I use and I absolutely love it. You could use gum trag or use some basically just bits of water. Some people use a bit of saddle soap. Completely up to you how you want to burnish it. I absolutely have fallen in love with Toconol and cannot go back since. I'm using a 100% cotton glove. Now, you might see many people using a wood dowel or slicker to be able to do their burnishing, or just a cotton rag. Make sure if it's going to be a cotton cloth or rag that it's 100% cotton, because otherwise it's just not as effective. In my case, the gloves give me an amazing control, and that's why I use it here, and I find that this is what works best for me. As always guys, make sure you test it out for yourself. I'll be adding a crease line along my piece here. I'm new to crease lines, and this is a very rudimentary technique for me which I'm not yet used to, so don't pay too much attention to this. Just bear in mind that this is when you'll want to start adding in those accent lines if you decide to go that route. If you don't want to use this, that's fine, that's completely up to you. This is completely cosmetic, and yeah, so everyone has his own ways of doing things. As I mentioned, I'm using a lining here, and this is actually from a promotional tote bag that I was given for free when I purchased something some time back. And I've been using this same tote bag for quite a few of my products here because I absolutely love the design on this. And yeah, you can guess my baby is about, well, just a year old now, and at the time of filming this video though, and I've got quite a few friends of mine who are expecting as well. So this theme is just, yeah, it was an obvious theme to me here, and I find it's a nice little, just a nice little reference basically to all that. You'll notice that I've left the back piece uncut, and you'll see why in a second here, but bear in mind that the markings I made on the leather are just for reference. You don't have to follow these exactly at this point because you'll be cutting it to size later. Just make sure that you're using a good glue for this and wait for it to be tack dry or dry to the touch before going ahead and gluing everything together. I start by positioning my lining. Again, this is not tremendously important how straight it goes on because yes, you'll be cutting it later. Just make sure that that bottom edge is relatively straight in order for the fold that you'll be implementing later to take effect. Now for the front leather piece, don't glue the whole thing obviously. Just glue around the corners here and stick it on, making sure that you're lining everything up. To make sure that my glue is adhering and all my surfaces are nice and flat and touching each other, I'm using this wonderful brass roller from Dream Factory, and you could go ahead and hammer it down or just press it down with your fingers, but I find that this gives me a very, very controlled way of making sure that my leather pieces are stuck together well and truly, and absolutely love this tool. First time using it, it's easier than anything to use, much faster than what I used to do, and very, very precise. Once you've trimmed your pieces to size, sorry guys, go ahead and check the fit of that leather flap or leather wrap or whatever, or the fold or whatever you want to call it. And once you're happy with that, mark out the where the glue is going to come on here, and go ahead and either bevel. You could always bevel this top piece of the top piece of the leather in order to get down to those fibers, or as I do, just use a bit of sandpaper and roughen up that surface. Now the reason you do this is because that surface is very, very flat, very sleek and oily, and the glue that you'll be adding at this point won't have anywhere to hold on to if you don't do this. So go ahead and either scratch it up with an awl, or you could scratch it up with, as I did, sandpaper, or you could even go ahead and use a blade and cut off that top part of leather and skive the leather down. So not bevel, but skive that leather down, and that will expose the fibers and again enable the glue to have something to hold on to. I'm using the same roller here once more in order to make sure that all my surfaces are touching really, really nicely, and then I go ahead and finish up the edges with some more sandpaper. Now sandpaper is one of those things that I absolutely couldn't do without. In my case, I'm using a 140 grit sandpaper and 120 grit sandpaper, and I go up to a 240 grit later. I think, is it 120? I don't know, but you've got some relatively coarse and some relatively fine sandpaper, and these are two things you have to have in any shop. Go ahead and use that sandpaper to even out once more the surfaces of those pieces of leather, making sure that they are ready to be beveled, dyed, and then burnished. Again, using the same edge beveler, the same dye, and the same burnishing agent, Tokonol, not gum trag in my case, but as I mentioned, Tokonol would work fine. Using a Q-tip really helps getting those edges really perfect in terms of getting that dye back in. At this stage you have to be very, very careful because you've got that lining, because your piece is nearing the finish line. You want to be very careful you don't get any dye anywhere it shouldn't go. So using a Q-tip really does help me out a lot. Tokonol does go a long way. You really don't need much, and it gives you an amazing burnish. It's, for me, having tested a few different methods, yes, it's more expensive than gum trag, but trust me guys, if you have the option between gum trag and Tokonol, grab some Tokonol. It's not that much more expensive, it will last you a stupid amount of time, and it will give you a much better burnish. Seriously, if you can't get a better burnish with Tokonol than you can with gum trag, then you're doing something wrong. Am I overselling Tokonol? Yeah, probably. I'm using Crimson Hide's pricking irons here in 4mm spacing. These are the Japanese variants, and as you can see, Japanese versus French means that the Japanese tips have a small diamond shape to it instead of a flat shape, which you'll find in the French pricking irons. There isn't a huge difference in style here for the final result, since I'm I've got some relatively thick thread, which I love to use because it accentuates the leather, but if you're using a very fine thread, this could make a slight difference depending on the style you're looking for. So whatever the case may be, if you're looking for good pricking irons, go ahead and check out Crimson Hides for their pricking irons. I'm using Maisie thread here as always in the M60 variant, and I absolutely love this thread. It's just, for me, the most regular thread I've found so far. I used to use Fil de Lin au Chinois, which is an amazing thread as well, and yet this completely blows au Chinois thread out of the water. It's just so much better. If you have the option of picking it up, go ahead and try it. Either the M50 or the M60, depending on how thick you like your thread. At this point, your piece is practically finished here, but I always go ahead and overkill the burnishing on the side. So what I do is I sand down that original burnish pretty much to about 70% of what it was, so leaving just a very, very tiny bit of base coat of the original burnish, and go ahead and burnish again. So I'll sand it, I'll dye it if needed, and I'll add some more toconol and give it another burnish. Now you could do this two times, maybe 3 times. In my case, I always like to burnish 3 times if I have the time, because this is what will give me the most consistent finish. This is what makes sure that my edges are really, really smooth, really clean looking, and really protected. But to protect them even more, I like to add a tiny bit of beeswax, basically, for my final burnish. And I warm it up very briefly over a candle and go ahead and burnish once more using the beeswax. Now this will do several things. The beeswax will impregnate any fibers that may still be there, and just basically will protect it. So not only will it give you a gorgeous finish and gorgeous feel to it, but it will also protect your edges way better than not doing it. The final step here is going to be adding wax, and what better wax than Saphir Pat Deluxe? This is for me one of the best waxes, and if you haven't tested Saphir, I swear guys, there is no promotion in any of these. These are products that I buy for myself, and I don't have any affiliation with these guys. They are the products that I use most, and I absolutely love them, so go ahead and check out Saphir if you can. Now, let's have a look at the final result. As you can see guys, it's looking really nice. It's a very simple little card holder, very nice stylized card holder, and the pattern enables you a huge variety of different combinations you might want to do between your inlays, between your lining, between any decorative work you want to do. It's a very simple little pattern, very nice little pattern, but I hope to be very useful. Yeah, if you've enjoyed this pattern, once more, go and check out the link in the description below. Go and check out my Etsy page to see all my different patterns. Pick it up for yourself, try it out, let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So guys, do let me know what you think of this video and of this pattern down in the comments below. Please leave a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel. That really helps me grow. So as always guys, thanks a ton for being here, thanks for watching, hopefully you've enjoyed, hopefully you've learned something, and hopefully I'll see you next time for some more leathercraft.